Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case, looking at the latest breaking news on the matter. Today I have a very important video to share with you. It's in regards to the official 911 dispatcher calls, in which 2 out of the 3 have been revealed. The audio, what the people say from their point of view when coming across the body of Noah Presgrove Monday morning. Now, it might come off as a bit of a surprise or shocking news. I wasn't expecting this, but that's why I'm doing it right now. Everything else, all of the plans, they can be put aside for now. Welcome to those watching this live premiere. Feel free to share your thoughts and opinions in the live chat box on the right hand side of the screen. If you do want to leave comments, questions, react, elaborate, let me know all your thoughts and feelings down below under this video, and I can always respond back and maybe even answer questions. You'll also find a pinned comment by me down below with some additional links if you do want to support this channel. Shout out to the individuals such as Last Night, Watcher Crazy, Leanne, Badger Life, Cleo, of course, and a few other people, and the odd person in the background like PayPal. Much appreciated. I'm going to keep on going, more videos to cover. If you are interested in previous videos that I've done recently, such as Last Night, the important deep analysis of the mystery golf clubs and them being missing once again, for all the latest news and stories explained, check last night's video. Hover around the screen top right corner right now, or when you finish watching this video more so, and click on the eye symbol. You will find the playlist by me on the case and all the videos that I've made, including last night's video too. So make sure to catch up on that. But right here, right now, we need to lock on in. And I'm aware there might have been a bit of disruption from some other humans out there, but hopefully most people who are watching and those that come from this community weren't too disrupted by it. Right now, the order of how we're going to do things today, I'm going to play the 911 dispatcher calls immediately. You can listen on in. If it's hard to hear because there's no subtitles given, I did try using it and it didn't work, don't worry. I used my hearing, I wrote it down, and I'll read it back out to you and we can analyze, then go over it, and then compare and contrast elsewhere, such as on the Facebook page, because there's been some reactions over there. And if there were any mistakes or misunderstandings, I will be able to iron it out, or at least clear things up, because I did hear it clearly. Maybe other people didn't or misinterpreted it. That's why we're looking at it today bit by bit. And then once we've done the Facebook perspective, we'll go back to the original transcript of the official news article. I think it's Fox News that did and released this video in the first place. Then we can compare the notes. And then if there is time, I can even go on to Google Earth satellite imagery Street View and just talk it through how it would have looked visually from what angle and perspective. But before I play the video to you, I just want to try and make it clear as to who could be who within the dispatcher calls. They don't mention their names, right? So you might have to guess. But in terms of how it's worded, it seems like the first caller could possibly be the white semi-truck driver, possibly. Then the second caller isn't included within this video. The third and final caller appears to be Tyler Hardy, the truck driver what we've heard of, the one that claims to have come across Noah first on scene. But in terms of the order of these calls, he was certainly not the first on scene. So let me play the video to you right now and make sure to listen in.
911, what is your emergency?
Hey, on Highway 81, just north of Terrell, in between Terrell and Ryan, Oklahoma, it's probably about 3 miles north of Terrell. Driving down the road, and I had a bunch of cars behind me, but it looked like somebody got hit, like somebody walking down the highway laying on the shoulder of the road.
It looks like somebody's laying in the road?
Like on the shoulder, like maybe they were walking and somebody hit them, unless it was a deer. It looked like a body.
Okay. You said, so on Highway 81,
In
north.
between Ryan and Terrell, just north of Terrell, it's probably about 3 miles. It's kind of in a low spot.
Okay. And is that gonna be? I'm trying to think which way that highway runs. Is it gonna be on your east, west, north, or south? I'm trying to think. I'm sorry.
It goes north and south. It runs out of Duncan.
Okay. So what side of the road is that on?
It'd be on the west side of the road.
Okay. Let me see who I have on duty to go check that out.
That's it. It looked awful odd.
911. What is your emergency?
Yes, ma'am. I was driving to work. I'm south of Terrell, or north of Terrell, south of Ryan.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure there's somebody laying dead along the road. They look naked. I'm staying back.
Okay, I just had 2 calls on that, and I have a deputy headed that way.
All right. Well, I'm
And
sitting here blocking the road.
Oh, are you there waiting? Okay.
Because he's right. The body's laying right on a white line.
Oh, it is a boy. He's naked, and he's laying on the white line.
He's naked.
I turned around because I just about hit it because there's a deer run across the road, and I'm like, first I thought it was a deer, and I was talking to a guy I work with. I'm like, I don't think that's a deer.
Yeah, that's what my first caller said. Thought it was a deer, and then when he looked back and he said, "No, there's no way that's a deer."
No, and it actually looks like there's a piece of clothing maybe laying in the middle of the road. Now, I don't want to get too close. I just
Jeremy right now.
No, this is another 911 call that's looking at it.
Oh, she's already been in touch with Jeremy.
Okay. Yeah, Jeremy's gonna head that way.
Jeremy's heading that way. She's on the
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So you're staying there, or?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and make sure nobody runs it over or anything else. I mean,
I have a art reporting party staying there until a deputy gets there to block so nobody hits them again.
There is the reporting party is going to sit there with flashers on.
So hopefully you were able to hear that. You're welcome to rewind the video again to re-listen to the audio. But what I did do to avoid any copyright BS, I did overlay a different point of view because the original footage with the audio playing was a blank screen. So I thought I would match up the description from the point of view of the callers as for the angle and direction they were facing in, roughly speaking, including the little map overlay with the arrows pointing as for where is what and what's in between. That red little star, what you saw, was roughly the location of where the body was found at on the shoulder of the highway. So I thought I'd just add that in to make it a little bit more interactive so you see it from the point of view as if we are on ground level at the time it's occurring. The only difference being that was daytime, the street view, and what they were in. As for their situation back then, it was early hours of the morning, so it would have been darker. But, you know, you can't have everything, right? So I just wanted to do that now, just in case I don't get round to it later. So I thought, it combines well, doesn't it? So what I would like to do is just go over the transcript, or at least the notes that I wrote down. They're just to the side of me, almost word for word. We can look at the official transcript as well, but the reason why I'm doing mine right now, because the official one doesn't include all the key conversations, only a few responses. And I think other ones that weren't included are just as important. So just bear with me. What I do want to highlight is a day or two ago, someone made a reference on my channel in the live Premier chat about the first call in wasn't 5:53. It was 5:46. And obviously, the earlier, the better, the closer to the time of when the likes of Caden Pressey was out there, etc., etc. And although they supposedly didn't cross paths, you know, the more you hear about newer people or newer times coming out, it just makes it a little bit better, if you get me. But supposedly 5:46 a.m. a call was made to the police, and then followed by 5:53 a.m. Am I saying that the 5:46 a.m. ties in with this first caller who we listened to just before? Not exactly. It could be the first or the second caller. As for 5:53 a.m., that timestamp of when it was reported into police for the third time, that was Tyler Hardy, as he said himself. Okay? So there is a bit of a mystery behind the second caller. Who were they? Where were they exactly? And did number 1 and number 3, Tyler Hardy, see that second caller or what? Or was it a person passing on by who did not stop? I wonder. But nevertheless, originally I bullet pointed it as caller 1 or caller 2, but it was caller 1, the first person to do so besides Tyler. Said they were driving north, basically speaking, in quotes, had a bunch of cars behind him, which is very interesting considering how the traffic was supposed to be very quiet or light at the time. And even when Tyler Hardy was there himself not long after, he worded it as if he was the first one there, but surely he would have seen something or someone pass by. If earlier, before 5:53, you had another truck driver, this supposed white service truck driver, if I'm correct in saying. But nevertheless, this first caller said he had like a bunch of cars behind him. So did any of those cars see what he saw when driving past, or did they not think much of it? Because whilst you're behind a big truck, you're going to be focusing directly in front of you and not to the side. Because of that big obstruction in front of you, it might blind your view slightly to the side, to the right, left. Whereas if you're the truck driver in front, you got open, clear view, big window to look out of. You are elevated higher up if you are in a truck normally, so you get a better idea of the ground and what's around you. So likely caught his attention, caught his eye. Okay. The next thing mentioned by him, the first caller, it was like someone got hit by a vehicle walking down the highway, and interpreting it as a theory or concept. That's exactly how I did my analysis, if you remember, on the basis that Noah left the party somewhat successfully, and despite being rejected and turned down as for being driven back, because that's really the only way he can get back home, there was no other options. Desperate times, desperate measures. I'll walk back myself. Walking on the left-hand side with oncoming traffic coming towards you as you normally would, and somehow making contact with the vehicle that approaches you. Am I saying that that did happen? No. Did the police or people within the case rule it out? Yeah. But those within the case, like parents or the odd friend, maybe Jack Newton, but more so Stevie Howard, are still believing it's a hit and run despite it being ruled out. So a bit delusional, or they know what's what, but they're trying to convince others to change the direction. But nevertheless, at that time, at that moment, 5:46 a.m. or before that possibly, or after that, I'd probably say before 5:46 a.m. This first caller interpreted it at the time as a possible hit and run, walking down the highway and got hit by something. And that probably would be a normal reaction, right, from anyone, because normally you wouldn't be expecting anyone to be on the side of a highway, let alone probably dead or just flat out on the ground. So the first thing that comes to your mind will be, well, it's a highway, there is a form of traffic, even if it's somewhat light, must have got hit. I need to check it out. Now, he did say he thought it could have been a deer, a bit uncertain, but in the end was made aware that it was a body. It looked like a body and not just a simple deer being hit by a vehicle. So that was basically the first call. There's a little bit confirmation from the dispatcher, but I showed it to you on screen as for the map and everything. And then it transitioned slowly, or it faded out into the next call number 3, which was supposedly Tyler Hardy, the third and final call. And it was worded by him himself. I was driving to work, and it said North Terrell, south of Ryan. And if you remember Tyler Hardy, I can't remember where we read it now, but somewhere, maybe in one of the articles, it said Tyler was driving to work. So that kind of ties in with where he was going, right? He himself didn't mention anything about heavy traffic or cars behind him. So that's kind of interesting, at least. The other quote that was mentioned was, I'm sure someone was laying dead along the road naked. Now that description, naked, unclothed, wasn't mentioned by the first caller, but then again, maybe not everybody is as descriptive as one another. But at least if Tyler, with Tyler Hardy saying that he saw a person laying dead along the road, unclothed, with no shorts on, that does tie in line with the Daily Mail article that we read out, where they were claiming to interview Tyler Hardy, and supposedly the wife Mallory said that interview never happened. And the reason why I just want to highlight that right now, because it's important to acknowledge that even though the Daily Mail article that did that fake interview supposedly with Tyler Hardy, what was said within that article, or a portion of it, was true and consistent with these calls. So when humans try to call me out and say you shouldn't be covering that article, it's all misinformation, wrong. Okay? In terms of how the Daily Mail got that information, probably from Facebook or what Tyler said elsewhere when he was interacting with different communities. And I did ask the question, is it possible that Daily Mail got the information elsewhere, third party, from Tyler indirectly, and then twisted it as if they got the information right from the horse's mouth, and it was done as an interview to make it look more appropriate and it looks better, when that wasn't exactly the case. So, cross wires, a little bit of twisting as to how one got information from, but the information itself, or a fair portion of it, or at least a bit, was true, and we heard it in that dispatcher call. Under control, okay? Just wanted to make that very clear for the odd little cretins out there who don't quite understand. So yeah, laying down along the road naked. Then the dispatcher says, oh yeah, I just had 2 calls on that. And I think that was to do with the reference to the deer situation, where Tyler was considering, was it some kind of deer? Could I almost hit it or so? Had to avoid it. Dispatcher is just simply acknowledging that, yeah, we had a first caller who we heard in the video, and the second caller who we didn't hear or see, which is a bit of a mystery. I don't know why that wasn't included within that little compilation video, but I guess it is where it is. But the dispatcher did say that, we have a deputy heading on down that way. And then you could hear briefly in the background, they said, Jeremy, the deputy, is heading on down, one individual. Who is Jeremy? I'm assuming Jeremy is short for Jeremiah. Who is Jeremiah besides being the deputy down there? Well, I'm not too sure if Jeremiah is connected to any of the family members or those somehow within the case or party goers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I have heard the name referenced before on Facebook, Jeremiah, and not much positivity was said about him. Corruption, I'm not too sure. I'm not going to go there because I don't know too much about that specifically, but you can always add on if you want down below in the comment section. But linking back to Tyler Hardy, he did say he was sitting there blocking the road. I'm assuming he was blocking the road on the, if you're going towards Terrell, you're going to be heading, well, in your perspective, it would be north, but it wouldn't be the case. You'd be going south. But it depends which direction you're facing in at the time. And obviously, if you use a compass, right? But by blocking the road, you'd think only blocking one lane. Okay, so oncoming traffic could pass on by, I'm assuming, at least how it's worded there. What else? It also mentioned about body laying right on the white line. I turned around just about, almost hit it, thought it was a deer. That was just a little fact I wanted to add in before. So driving on down, passed by and then had to turn around. Now the reason why that's interesting, because from, it's also been highlighted by the likes of Dusty, the Facebook admin, the admin of the Facebook page, Noah Presgrove's Army, and even she said the third caller would have been Tyler Hardy. But I do remember where it was mentioned in the community, or at least in the chat on my channel at some point, about, oh yeah, there was a person that drove on down but then had to turn around and then come back up. And that might have been a reference indirectly by the likes of Jack Newton as well, from what he said back then. But they were wording that as if it was the service truck driver and not Tyler Hardy. Unless Tyler Hardy was in another service truck, and there's 2 lots of service trucks. I can't remember the brands or names, but I'm sure Tyler Hardy was in a Ford F-150, which isn't like a full-on truck, is it? It's more like a pickup truck. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just using my memory here as best as I can. But nevertheless, were you going down one way and then turning back round again? It caught one's attention, of course, and that's what made him to pull on over. And the bit about being unclothed, well, that's consistent with what we've heard previously. At least from what Caden Pressey has said, though, it differs. But there's always that middleman factor of, after Caden left and before Tyler and another truck driver got on down, so it must have happened in between, and that hidden recorded footage supposedly shows the body being tampered with and the shorts being removed and replaced with new shorts, white ones. And it just so happens that Tyler Hardy in his audio says there was a piece of clothing which was kind of laying in the middle of the road. Laying in the middle of the road. Why would clothing be there exactly? Now, as for the body laying on the white line, I think the odd person might have got confused on Facebook, and we'll see it very soon. When you think of a white line, it depends what country you're in or maybe the location, right? Let's just say you got a road and the odd highway as well. There'd be some exceptions, and there's like 2 lanes. One oncoming traffic going one way, the other coming the opposite way. So it's like that, there and back. You get what I'm saying, like a normal road, right? You got the middle line going all the way down, which separates the 2 lanes, so you make sure you don't cross on over because you're not supposed to, because you'd be coming on to head-on traffic. The middle line can be white, but in this case, it was yellow, wasn't it? So for Tyler to say, oh, there was a body laying on the white line, that would have been the white line as in the hard shoulder, the shoulder of the highway, consistent with what we've heard already, okay? But maybe the odd person on Facebook assumed that it meant the body was in the middle of the road. That wasn't the case. But what Tyler says, the clothes were in the middle of the road, or kind of in the middle of the road. Could he have been a bit uncertain about it? Well, there's a difference between clothing being in the middle of the road and then clothing being on the shoulder next to Noah's body. If you're going to describe Noah's body as in on the shoulder of the road, then so should the clothing. But Tyler said it wasn't. It was kind of in the middle. So there's a bit of distance apart, and it just seems a bit weird how one thing's there and then the other one's spread out over the road. Because at least from how we've read about it and heard about it in the news, how it's been talked about, how it was mentioned in the autopsy report, is that a pair of shorts were folded. As strange as that is, obviously, some kind of foul play, some kind of tampering with the body, because Noah would not be taking them off and then folding them nearby and then just die like that, nor would he be able to do it after death either, so someone else was responsible for that. But to directly say it was on the side of the shoulder of the road, the highway, the hard shoulder, next to his body, folded. Yet Tyler Hardy said they were kind of in the middle of the road. There's a big difference, isn't there? So how did they go from the middle of the road to then neatly folded by the side of his body then? Why are these things being spread about? That's the bit that confused me and I found it a little bit dodgy, I'm not going to lie. The only other mystery within this is the second caller. We heard the first one, we heard the third one, but what about the second caller? Why did we not hear from them? Why was it not included in this footage? Who were they exactly? What's their name? Did they see anything different? In fairness, I don't think they would have done, because whatever the description was given by the first caller and then Tyler the third, in between that, it only would have been a short space of time, wouldn't it? Could the second unknown caller have been the one that called in at 5:46 a.m. and then at 5:53 the third caller, Tyler Hardy, did so? And then as for the first caller, who we did hear from, but we don't know the person's name exactly, and we don't know the time given when it was called in, could have been before 5:46. Kind of close together, but only, 2 truck drivers decided to stay on scene or so? Interesting. Because how it's worded by Tyler Hardy is that he was already parked up near to the body, blocking the road to make sure no one would hit it, and he was calling in. and supposedly from his description that he was the first one there and no one else was around. And yet you got caller number 1 who was passing by and saw it before Tyler did. Now, was caller number 1 making the call to the police whilst stationary? You would hope so, right? Not calling whilst driving unless it's a hands-free device. I'm not too sure the context there. But if caller 1 had passed by it or instantly parked up regardless, surely Tyler would have come across that original truck driver, right? Now, did that first truck driver come across the second truck driver? Did the second truck, not the second truck driver, but the second caller, I should say. And then did the second caller see the first caller, which was the truck driver? Did the second caller see Tyler Hardy pass on by? Because in the order of how it appears to be, it just seems just a little bit messy in my opinion, but you can always share your reactions down below if you want to clear it up further. What we are going to do now is look at it from the point of view perspective of those on Facebook to see if they interpret it differently and if there's any additional context given. And then once that's done, if there is any more confusion, we'll go back to the original article transcript page, okay? Here we go, 14 hours ago. Once again, time zone difference. I probably would have been asleep. Dusty Butler says, newly released 911 calls, but something strange in the calls. By the time Tyler Hardy calls, who is the last 911 call, dispatch tells him they had received 2 other calls. So Tyler Hardy was actually the third person to call. The strange thing is, there was only 2 calls released for this publication. So, who was the other caller that was released? You know, has it already been released in the past or what? That was obviously the first call, but was it the semi-driver or the mystery caller? And does that mean one of them did not stop or return to the scene? They just called 911 and kept driving. Fair point. I think we're somewhat on the same wavelength, I think. Edited, the first caller also states he had a bunch of cars behind him, so no one else called 911. Okay, we're kind of on the same wavelength. Now, the only thing I could think of is the people in the cars behind the truck driver may have been too busy focusing on what's in front of them. There's clearly a moving vehicle, like a truck possibly, bigger size. You want to be careful. You don't want to rear end it because you could cause more damage to yourself than the truck in front or the bigger vehicle, right? I'm assuming. You may not have enough time to look to the left, and because you're lower down in a vehicle, possibly you may not see stuff as clearly as if you were in a truck or a bus, right? Because you think of the window size, you think of the height, you know, you lower down or high up. If you lower down, lower to the road, but maybe you don't get the same view, or it's not quite the same when you're looking ahead. And it depends where people are looking at the time, right? You know, okay, caught the attention of the first caller. Was he just naturally looking slightly off to the direction of where the body was, so it caught his eye more than somebody behind that was looking to the right or the opposite way, and or looking straight ahead at the vehicle in front of them? There's a link there. But what about the comments? What do people have to say? There's quite a few, but we'll just try and get through so many of them. Top comments. Do we have all comments? We might as well do all comments. It makes sense. Robin, not to be mixed up with the other Robin, who is the Anne. This is just general public person from the looks of it. It is odd they only released 2 of the calls. The other one might have more details, maybe. And I'm assuming that the other caller is the second caller, from how it's been worded in the transcript. So how much would it have differed? How much would it have differed in detail from the second caller, who hasn't been shown, compared to the first caller and the third caller? I wonder. Dedra, if you listen, one caller says there's a naked body and his clothes are laying in the middle of the road. So that definitely contradicts what the boy said that Noah had shorts on when he came up in the red Jeep. But you can hear the 911 caller state he was naked. So these stories are getting all crazy. It's not, though. This isn't making FBI job any easier with these different stories. Right. I will read the replies, but I think I do have it under control in terms of what I know of or what I've heard. But let's just see the responses. Definitely keeping everyone confused. That's what I'm saying. It's crazy. Not all of us. Okay, yes. What else? I'm not trying to dispute anyone's testimony or what they saw, but I've re-listened to those 2 calls several times. The operator is still on the phone with the man who said a piece of clothing in the road and a naked body on the white line, so he was going to stay there so no one would possibly hit the body. If you listen closely to the operator, when the second phone call actually came in, she was skeptical about the first man's possible seeing of an actual body, so also had to ask the directions and what side of the road the said body was. These statements happen before the second call is made. You can hear another 911 worker in the background that states after the second caller call, they just had an officer on his way to check it out. I have no idea. Right. Dodgy. I think the other lady in the background was dispatching Jeremy out and might have been on with, yes, probably, yes. Exactly, but the line of cars following the caller did not exist according to traffic cameras. Who was that caller? I mean, there's no cameras though in between that highway, that section. So if cars somehow did turn onto the highway after that. Now, there seems to be responses by people like Alicia Lee, but I don't see their comments on screen, not from what I can see. I don't know if I'm blind or something, but I can't see them. View previous replies. Yeah, sometimes they do miss stuff out. Unless he was there prior to all of this and they left the scene for him to be found, 911 calls didn't come in until 5:50-ish a.m. Caden claims they were woken up down there at 5:15. Yeah, and more about that later. Where's Alicia Lee? Alicia Lee. Caden was there before these calls came in. Exactly. So Alicia Lee is on the right wavelength there. Personally, I don't want to get too much into this because I don't want it to confuse my own mindset, so I will try and clear it up as soon as I can. What does one say? That would have been what was being said. Okay. We moved a year later. That county is dangerous county. Too many unsolved things out there. Sounds dodgy. Keeping confused. Right. The bit... How do I word this? Let me just do it right here, right now. So, yes, what Caden Pressey says from what he saw in his official statement on Facebook, it does differ to the likes of Tyler Hardy, that third caller, that claimed and said, well, body on the side of the highway, naked, shorts, in the middle of the road. Now, me personally, I've never heard it mentioned about middle of the road before, only that they were on the side. How does it differ between Tyler Hardy's statement, what he saw from, what we heard of the call? How does that differ to the autopsy report? Well, the autopsy report said that Noah's body was naked. That's consistent with what Tyler saw himself. But the autopsy did say that the shorts were folded by the side of his body. So that would have been by the side on the shoulder of the highway, not in the middle of the road. Yet Tyler stated they were in the middle of the road. So who brushed them aside? Who put them in the middle of the road to begin with, and then who moved them back and then folded them up? That's a bit inconsistent, because I've never really heard that before, as for the middle of the road. But if you're comparing at least what Tyler Hardy says to what Caden Pressey says, we've already done an analysis about it. But I'll reiterate it for the odd few people out there, and maybe those on Facebook who are a bit confused. Caden Pressey was woken up at the party house by the likes of Jack Newton that got back to the party house around 5:15 in the morning. Caden Pressey, when woken up, checked his phone and it said 5:15 from what he said, from what he saw. Then supposedly Jack buried his head into a pillow or something and Carter Combs saw it herself. But nevertheless, Caden Pressey wanted to go on down to the scene to see what was going on. Couldn't find his other shoe, unknown at the time, unaware, that Noah was wearing it. So he just hopped into the vehicle, red Cherokee, with 2 to 3 other guys. Supposedly one of the guys was Isaac, that guy you saw in the party footage behind Noah and Brylan Sweat with that rifle. And then one of the other guys was Brylan Sweat himself. That's what Skippy said last night, a viewer on my channel. How true is it? I don't know personally. But Caden did say him and 3 guys went on down to the highway and then they got out. Even though I think it was Sarah Long stated they stayed in the vehicle, or Stevie Howard stated it, which is a bit weird, but let's forget about that. When they got down to the highway, 2 to 5 minutes later, Caden was ordered to return back to the party house. Why would you be ordered back by some kind of authoritative figure? You would think, unless it was somebody else. A truck driver? Well, it couldn't have been the service white truck driver or Tyler Hardy, because they got there like an hour later, or were passing by closer to an hour after. So whilst Caden was there just after 5:15 in the morning, much earlier on, before the truck drivers, before it was officially reported in, Caden was ordered with his guys to head on back to the party house. Then you've got that supposed secret hidden recorded footage in which there are people in shot of the camera, somebody holding and recording, and then 4 other people, supposedly guys, males, that stood around, and one of which tampers with the body. So maybe moves it into a different position possibly, but also removes the shorts, the black shorts which Caden Pressey saw, which were on Noah's body earlier when Caden was there. But supposedly the black shorts were removed by someone, possibly to get rid of evidence, and replaced with white shorts and folded nearby. Then what happens? Supposedly they disappear from the scene, because the next lot of people to come on by are the truck drivers that don't see anyone around the body. So whoever was there earlier has scattered now and taken the black shorts with them. Truck driver passes on down, first caller, notices the body. No detailed description given them. Then a second caller, close together, but we don't know much about that because it wasn't really revealed or explained. Then the third caller, Tyler, the main guy, who claims to be the first guy on scene, but he definitely isn't now. But in terms of his interpretation at the time, he was the only one there, which is kind of hard to think if there's already a first or second person that's already called in and the nearby of the park up or not immediately. That could determine the situation. But Tyler Hardy says that the body is naked. So Caden said he was clothed, Tyler says he was naked, but there is hidden recorded footage in between those two people and timestamps to suggest foul play, tampering with the body, clothing removed and replaced. But in terms of that secret hidden recorded video, does it match Tyler's description that the clothing was found in the middle of the road instead of by the side on the shoulder? That's the only bit that doesn't quite add up. And then to add on, in response to Tracy about, the caller or something being a bit confused or trying to work out the situation, I mean, the only way I can interpret it is if you got one person going north, the other person going south in different directions, you're going to be looking at the highway and the shoulder differently, okay? If you're heading north, you're closer to the right-hand side of the hard shoulder. If you're heading south and you're on the left-hand side of the road, then on your perspective when going the opposite way, it's going to be the other side of the hard shoulder, right? So one person going forwards, one person going the other way, and they're saying the same side of the shoulder is going to be described differently. Those driving on the left will say the shoulder on their right, and the people who are driving on the right-hand side of the road heading north will be saying it's on the left side of the shoulder. Does that make sense? That's why it's a bit confusing. That's why I did my little video edit before, showing it from the perspective of each caller or so, roughly speaking. I hope I made it clear enough. Apologies if there was the odd mistake, but I did play it over a few times to understand. So we won't go over this too much because I don't want it to confuse me myself, okay? Because I've just explained it, or at least tried to. And it sure does contradict what Stevie Howard said about no traffic picked up by the Mini Mart or Peach Orchard. I guess so. My only question would be, such as with the first truck driver that said there was a handful of cars behind him, is there any roads in which cars could have turned onto the highway after the cameras? Is that even possible? Yes or no? Let me know below. Tell me, I'd like to know what time each call was made and how much time between each 911 call passed. And the first caller said a bunch of cars was behind him. Oh, Justin Roy responds. Justin says the first call was 5:46 a.m. Boom, boom, boom. Same wavelength yet again. And credit to whoever it was recently on my channel that made the reference to 5:46. So it's very close together. Supposedly the first caller, from what we've heard of in that footage, that audio more so, dispatch call, 5:46 a.m. So what time was the second caller? When the third caller, Tyler Hardy, was at 5:53 a.m. Very close together. And the reason why it's so important for it to be very close together is how didn't they see one another immediately or when passing by exactly? If that could be cleared up, that'd be good. But the last caller was the one stating he was driving to work, so are we sure he wasn't the one that Caden Pressey saw in the white work truck? Well, Caden Pressey was there just after 5:15, Tyler 5:53. By the time Caden was ordered to head back to the party house, it was nowhere near the time of 5:53 from the looks of it. Dusty says, no, he wasn't. That was argued out a while back between Hardy and Pressey. Well, there we go. That's cleared up there. Sometimes I think 911 callers say we've had 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 calls already, when in reality, only 2 total. That would make sense if they were receiving multiple calls. This would have been the second, and usually they say a few calls. They were specific in saying 2 calls, and it almost seems as if they didn't take it as serious until the second recording stated that he was still with the body and blocking it. Can or is someone going to share this on the Justice page? For the family. It's already on there. Y'all had better leave Caden alone. He's the only one who's got enough bitch to come forth and do what's right. And that's telling the truth about what he saw. Don't try to discredit the young man. So we got a little bit of tension already on Facebook. Here we go. I'm not trying to discredit at all. Just trying to figure it out. I think it's pretty much under control. But we just go over this anyway, just to highlight people's different responses and how they see things, right? I really don't believe in majority of psychics. Listen to Psychic Sleuth on YouTube. 4 readings. Last one she did was very in-depth. I don't know. She said Noah came through and said it was 2 males in a vehicle that put him on the side of a road and was beating him. The 2 males made a female go and watch everything. We've heard that before, to be honest, referenced. I mean, me personally, and it's just from my point of view, any and every case that I've got involved with or analysed and looked at, not a single psychic has been right. And that's just from what I've seen, what I've heard, and the videos that I've looked at. I mean, I actually gave it a chance to listen to one psychic within the Sebastian Rogers case, and fuck me, it won't be happening again. You know, that bloody talking, and I think I remember something, maybe not, or was it really that? Oh, I've discredited myself again, I've contradicted myself. Oh God, why do you contradict yourself? You need to get a grip, man. Exactly. It was a disaster. I don't want to go back over it again. PTSD flashbacks. Talking about bloody chicken, talking about eating food. Who cares about food? We need to be focusing on the missing person, right? I suppose I didn't read off the Chinese takeaway, but yeah. It's just me, my personal opinion. There are people on this channel that do think highly of psychics and believe in them. Okay, fair enough. But, you know, cases like the Dylan Rounds case, it got nowhere. False leads. Major extreme false leads. Claims about Dylan being chopped up and scattered. Absolute bollocks and bullshit never happened. Claims of Dylan being held hostage. Absolute bollocks never happened. You talk about the Kenny Veach case, supposedly psychics guiding people out there on a search. A complete wasted journey. Bollocks BS. Okay? Sometimes psychics can be helpful, but most of the time, at least from what I've seen, it can lead you to wasted time or in dangerous situations. Sometimes common sense is what's needed, no matter what your education level is or degrees what you have, whichever you pull out from the rear. As long as you've got common sense, that will go far enough when looking at whatever. So I think it was Caleb Newton, Jack Newton and Avery Combs. I think the whole thing erupted over Caleb Newton and Avery Combs being caught or seen by Noah Presgrove, I think they made Avery Combs watch as a silent threat to her. Now, there's already been claims or theories or ideas that supposedly Caleb Newton was at the party and that supposedly Avery Combs was having some naughty time with an older guy. So was there a link, possibly? Who knows? I think there was a few comments just recently on one of my videos where they were saying how Caleb Newton could have been sleeping with Avery Combs, supposedly, and that Rosa Newton in the background is left in the dark about it because supposedly Caleb's cheated in the past and Rosa said, if you do it again, we're going to break up. Is any of that true, or is it just gossip around the local town? I don't know, but I'm not too focused right now about that. What else do we have? There we go, we got one of the readings. Another reading, astrology. I think, what did I call it last time? Hemorrhoids or something. I don't know. I think it might have been, of something else. I can't remember. My husband is first responder. I was reading these comments to him. He said they probably haven't released the other 911 call because it's more than likely has a lot more detail and they might still be investigating the caller. Well, if the second caller can give more detail, yet they did not remain on scene on site because they likely passed by. So in between 5:46 and 5:53, if that second caller had a lot more detail to give, you would think they probably would have parked by to look at the body, look at the scene, because the more detailed description you give, the more likely you are to have stopped, got out of the vehicle, had a look up close, right? And by then, 5:53 would have passed by quick and Tyler would have seen that person, but no mention there. So how else could it be possible that a person could have passed by, maybe, or maybe not even passed by, but elsewhere, because was the location and ping given as for where these calls were made? Not quite, because, okay, first caller and third caller say they're going down the highway, north or south, whatever. They've roughly given the location. But what location did that second caller give? If they weren't even down the highway, but they had a lot of detail to give, it would seem as if maybe, whilst they called in between the other two, that they knew about the extra details because they knew about it way before in advance. So could that highlight party goer, somebody else, key individual? Who knows? Because, yeah, I don't want to go over it too many times. It's weird. Dusty, and I do believe there is misinformation that I spoke. Stevie states in this that no other service truck passed, but all other vehicles are accounted for. She also states in another that the Texas boys didn't pass the cameras. I'm assuming they checked every vehicle that passed for damages. I'd say they're all accounted for. So who would have hit him if all vehicles were accounted for? Why are we doing the hit and run thing? My question is, why was Jack supposedly shown the two pings but nobody else got to see them? Dusty, good question. That's what I'd like to know as well. Stevie Howard, we'll just read that quickly. In the past, from my understanding, he is confused on time. Not calling him a liar, but he can change his account and I am only giving mine as I was asked. I wasn't there. Well, that's great, isn't it? But Jack was shown the pings from the phones. I was not. So it's what he said from what he told me and what was passed on. Kind of like a Sarah Long situation where you first start it off with a form of confident language as if it's for certain or close to a fact. But then you say, well, I think this was said. I think I remember this was said. And what he said, yeah, from what he told you, he may have told someone else something else. That's not good, is it? Okay, telling people different things based off what they want to hear or how they want people to respond back. So Steve says, I was not, but I do need it. I do not need it because I already know for a fact there was never a service truck. It was a white Ford company truck. A white Ford company truck, I assume that's what Ken Press was referring to. We know there isn't one as it would have been on Minimark cam or my father's cameras, as they too show the road leaving and or showed the service truck heading north as well, any late or earlier time, meaning hours late or prior. I mean, truck or not, at the end of the day, you look at those dispatch calls, clearly a truck driver, a pickup truck driver were on call and said what they saw. That's what should matter most. Okay, we can talk about text, we can talk about witness accounts and stuff like that. Sometimes that's still not good enough. You've got to hear it from directly either the horse's mouth, or better still, audio at the time, timed to when it happened and at the scene. Photos, videos, audio call, that's the really hard-hitting stuff, and we managed to deliver that today, which is very good. What's this one? What's this all about? 0006, what is your emergency? In the road. Yes, ma'am, I was driving to work, north of Terrell, South Orient. I'm pretty sure there's somebody laying dead along the road. They look naked. I'm staying back at 1:21, 1:35 in the morning. And 2 calls on that, and I have a deputy headed that way. All right, well, I'm sitting here blocking the road. So it's like what we've heard before. But it's the fact that the times are a bit odd, the timing of that. Well, actually, no, hold on. The timing of that isn't the time of when the call was made, but more so the timestamp in that video that we saw. So when it says 0030, it means 30 seconds into the video, right? Think of YouTube. If you're watching my video right now, and this video was 30 minutes long, and let's say I mentioned a very important fact or a question at the 10-minute mark, 10 minutes into this 30-minute long video. Someone could leave a comment down below and say, at 10 minutes into the video, you mentioned a really good point. And if you type it out as 10.00, YouTube will automatically detect that as a timestamp within the video, and it will be highlighted as blue. If you use to hover over that comment and that timestamp and click on it, it will directly take you to that part in the video where it's talked about, right? I'm assuming that's what's going on here. They're only just releasing these now. I'm not sure either of them sound legit at this point. First one, very suspicious, but I'm not 100% on the second one. Why is this? Because if we're reading the same thing, isn't it close to what's said in the 911 call? Words are all kinds of jumbled. That's why it's posted. It's definitely off. Where did it come from? I don't make stuff up, never have. It was in a message. A message of what? A transcript? The transcript? And a transcription is, by profession over 20 years, if anyone wants, give me the time and I can transcribe. So much time is spaced out, 30 seconds or more. Something not right about that. The timing, I think Steve's got mixed up. The timing of this isn't to do with the timing of the call, but more so the timestamp of the video footage, like what we said. I mean, I'll just read it out just to see. Yes, ma'am, I was driving to work, north of Terrell, South Orient. I'm pretty sure there's somebody laying dead along the road. They look naked. I'm staying back. Emergency. And 2 calls. I mean, yeah, this doesn't seem to be the whole lot, though. Yeah, seems a bit dodgy. A little bit dodgy. Second caller says, I just about hit it because a deer had ran across the road. Then I thought it was a deer. I was talking to a guy that works for me who said, okay. So could it have also been a human and not a deer who ran across the road that caused the caller to almost hit Noah's body? Because the caller also misidentifies Noah's body as a deer at first. It wasn't until the passenger said, no, that wasn't a deer, that he realised what he had truly seen. I didn't think there was a passenger in the vehicle. I thought he said he had a conversation with a friend or guy elsewhere, unless I'm wrong there. My question was there someone else with the second caller? Second caller? It wasn't a passenger, it was someone who worked with on the phone with him. Exactly, Mallory. Mallory Hardy. There we go. Tyler was quoting himself to what he was telling his co-worker. Exactly. And it just so happened the first driver as well reported when he saw the body, at first he thought it was a deer. And then the third caller, being Tyler Hardy, said, I didn't want to hit it on the side because it was seen on the side of the road. I didn't want to hit it because I thought it was a deer or so. And then that dispatch caller says, the first caller, the other 2 caller mentioned it. The first caller mentioned it. So it all makes sense to me at least. The bit about, did the deer run across the road? Not so much that, but near to the road could be a deer about to cross and you swerved around. Kind of like that situation. Not that it ran across as if Noah ran across at that time, wouldn't have been the case, and it would have contradicted that, because if you're talking about it from Tyler Hardy's point of view and yet the first truck driver said the body was already on the side of the road, then it wouldn't have been alive by the time Tyler got there. So I would say that's invalid. Easier to say there. I don't feel like the first call is legit at all. The way he's talking, the way he's very insistent on repeating what the accident is, as in saying person has been hit by a car, he didn't stop, so he can't comment on what happened, saying he couldn't stop as traffic behind him. I thought there was no traffic on that road early in the morning. Just didn't sound genuine, wasn't believable. I mean, he sounded a bit drunk or pissed, or maybe it's just because he's got a southern accent. Maybe he hasn't got teeth, so it's harder for him to pronounce things, maybe. Painting a picture, like white line, very convenient place to put a body if you was okay. You also don't get hit by a vehicle and land neatly on the line. But this is the thing, a person driving down a road, if they came across an animal on the side, they'll probably say, oh, it's roadkill. If you see a body down a highway at an odd time of the day, really early hours of the morning, and it's laying on the side, or at least first time you see something laying on the side, then realise it's a human, you'd be thinking, oh shit, that's bad, but it's a highway. If you are walking down it, you could get hit by a vehicle, okay? Not everybody is a forensic expert. And at the time you see a body, it can be a shock. What do you think? You can't think everything. You can't go through every theory possible unless you decided to park up and then inspect the body, and maybe you've got more medical knowledge, which isn't expected of you if you're a member of the general public and you don't work in a medical field, and you'd be thinking, based off the injuries, I don't think it's a hit and run anymore. I actually think it was a lengthy beating used by a 3mm lodged weapon. Could be a blunt instrument force. Let's get the tape measure out. Let's measure the diameter and the radius. Do you honestly think general public would be doing that? Let me just get my little toolkit out, get my little ruler, protractor and compass and pencil, I'll do some mathematical equations. I don't think so. I mean, if you're just a member of the general public, you're just going to assume that because there is a body, a dead person by the side of the road, they must have been hit by a vehicle, such as a hit and run, right? Now, in terms of where the body was found and how it was laid out and the damage sustained, you're not going to be thinking all of that in the moment. So it's understandable why someone could just think and assume, oh, hit and run, there we go. But if you've got more knowledge behind it, or you've got at least more time, give a few months to look at the case, look at the body, look at the situation, hear about the other stories and perspectives, you might think differently. But when you're there in the moment, you're not going to be thinking any of that, especially if you're a stranger as well, because you're not going to know the full context. So it's understandable, at least in my mindset. I would assume that the other one potentially cannot be released, as for the second caller. Otherwise, I wouldn't know why they would release two and not the third. No. The third one was released. The first one was released. The second one wasn't. Okay? 3 calls made. The first and last, the last being the third caller, Tyler Hardy, were released. The second one in between wasn't. Just want to make that very clear before people do start getting it mixed up. What's this? I saw this post somewhere today. Lady says she got passed by a side-by-side around 5 a.m. or so that morning. One of my friends said she was on her way to work the morning, saw a side-by-side pass her on the highway around 5 in the morning or so. She remembers this because it came out of nowhere. How does it just come out of nowhere? Is it because you're not paying attention on the road or something? Okay. Exactly like Kane said, the only one from the party who has probably come forwards, the story remained consistent. The one who was lying most to lose. Okay. Right, that's it for the comments. Thank God for that, because I don't want to get too deep there. So we can just have a quick look at the article, if I can find it, if it will allow me. That one. If I can do the reader mode. Let me just go over it somewhat briefly, just so you see how it's been worded officially, at least for a transcript. Now, when you do watch that dispatcher call, there was the option to have closed captions or subtitles. I did turn it on and it didn't work for me, but it could for you. You can always give it a try. But this article, which had the video attachment, what we saw earlier, if anyone is joining late to this live premiere, I do advise you to rewind back to the beginning because it is important. It says Oklahoma 911 calls released from morning recent grad. What does that mean? Noah Presgrove found dead. awful odd. I mean, if you think it's awful odd, that's a weird way of saying it. You know, if you think, oh, he's been hit by a vehicle, is that odd to be hit by a vehicle? I mean, yes and no, because if you're walking down a highway, there is that risk of being hit by a vehicle, and if it happens, well, you probably shouldn't have been walking down there, especially early hours of the morning. That's if you was to interpret it without the context, okay? Like the missing blood loss. Forgetting about that, not including that. Let's move on. This post contains graphic descriptions. Well, I'm sure it's nowhere near as descriptive as that autopsy report. Nearly a year. Okay, so it just gives, I guess, like an overall summary, but we'll read it anyway. Just make sure we're on the right one. Nearly a year after the body of Oklahoma teen military hopeful. Was Noah Presgrove joining the military? I was completely unaware of that, but nevertheless, Presgrove was found on the side of a highway. 911 calls revealed a disturbing scene. 2 witnesses encountered the next morning, which would have been Monday. Noah Presgrove, 19, was found dead along a rural stretch of the US 81, Jefferson County, Oklahoma. Labor Day in 2023. He was last seen alive at a party that he attended with a group of friends that night, which is a 1 mile difference between the two locations. Medical examiner's report determined that Presgrove died of multiple blunt force injuries. Fox News Digital obtained 2 911 calls from motorists reporting what they first believed to be a deer laying on the side of a road, which was later determined to be a human remains. Not that a deer was crossing over, but by the side of the road, and if one of the truck drivers was driving on down, they didn't want to hit it. Makes sense. In quotes, it looks like someone got hit. Like someone walking down the highway, they are lying on the shoulder in the road, a caller tells a police dispatcher in one of the recordings. This, what's quoted here, is by the first caller, okay? Yeah, like on the shoulder, like maybe they were walking and somebody hit them. I thought it was a deer, but it looks like a body. I mean, it's reasonable, like a reasonable mindset to have in the moment. And as well, how many times has this person in life seen dead bodies, right? It sounds a bit weird that, but what I'm getting at is, if you're seeing a body, a dead person for the very first time, you might not know how to act, you might fumble with your words, you might be a bit nervous, you might be a bit distressed, who knows? Or, if you sound a bit too calm, maybe you've seen many dead people over time and it just is what it is, wrong place, wrong time, but not quite like a Caleb Newton situation. You get what I'm saying? The caller then tells dispatch that the scene looked awful odd. You mean awfully odd. Why would it look awfully odd if you didn't get out to have a close look, unless he did? Minutes later, another witness called 911 to report seeing a body on the side of the same highway in the same location as the first caller. Right, so this is Tyler Hardy from the looks of it. I was driving to work south of Terrell. I'm pretty sure someone is lying dead on the side of the road. They look naked, the caller tells the dispatcher. These are the banners which have come on out, and I think some others have been as well in Duncan saying, come forwards. I'm sitting here blocking the road. The body is laying right on the white line, which is on the hard shoulder, not the middle of the road. The caller says, confirming to dispatch that it was a dead naked body. I turned around because I just about hit it at first. I thought it was a deer, and I was talking to a guy I work with and said, I don't think that is a deer, the caller says. There we go. Second caller said there appeared to also be a piece of clothing in the middle of the road. That's the one thing that stands out to me, because at least from how it was worded from directly the autopsy report, clothing was found to be folded, the shorts, near to his body. But from what Tyler says, the clothing was in the middle of the road. That does not make sense at all. Who moved the clothing then? From Noah's body to the middle of the road, or from the middle of the road to Noah's body? Who would have touched it? You shouldn't be touching it at all. And if those shorts were in the middle of the road, did it have any tyre marks on, or were they in okay condition? So it says, manner of death is undetermined, but I think it was seen as a suspicious death, or at least worded like that elsewhere. What callers described to 911 dispatchers aligns with details from the medical examiner's report. Not exactly. The bit about being naked, yeah, but the bit about shorts being folded nearby and what Tyler said does not match. The decedent was found naked, wearing only a pair of shoes on the side of a highway in the morning, September 4th, 2023. There were no vehicle parts or debris observed at the scene. At this time, what transpired on how the body was found on the road, having multiple blunt force injuries, is unknown. Therefore, the manner of death is deemed undetermined, report reads. Mentioned a little bit more than that, though. Same report noted Presgrove's cause of death was multiple blunt force injuries. Yep. Further investigation revealed that the decedent was at a house party drinking on September 3rd, 2023. Then he rode an ATV Ranger vehicle with several men that rolled over. Incident. True for it to be called an incident because it was supposedly no damage done to him or the vehicle. Decedent was alive following the incident and returned to the party where he got into an argument with his girlfriend. He didn't have a girlfriend though, which is very odd. Decedent left the house party and was not found until morning. So you can see how it's worded, still a little bit dodgy. To say that following the incident returned to the party, I mean, you can return back to the party even if you're just on the outside of the building. Jack Newton said the ATV incident happened round the back of the house. How true is that? Not too sure. There's a few photos of Noah, including his grave. Noah Presgrove, Noah Alexander. People said, why is his last name or one of his names different to what we've heard of before? I think that's something to do with remarrying somebody or having the baby at a certain point in time and then remarrying after. I can't remember how all the family situations work. Okay, I'm not an expert on family trees, but you get what I'm saying. Someone will be out there that can explain it clearer. Presgrove 19, time graduated Comanche High School. Yeah. Just for no Presgrove, still seeking answers, a year later or so. I believe that something happened, like there was an accident and the kids got scared, whether it was when they were doing fight. Whoa, who's saying this then? Give me a second. Presgrove's family created a Facebook page. They just want closure. And then it says in quotes here, but I don't know who's actually saying it. I believe that something happened. Well, of course, like there was an accident and the kids got scared. Well, if they really got scared, there'd be no need to act all threatening afterwards. If they think it's an accident and they're a bit scared themselves, then they shouldn't be fighting back with threatening language, is what we've seen, right? But it says whether it was when they were doing the Fight Club. Fight Club? What's this? TMZ all over again. Whether it was when they were on ATVs, whether it was, I don't know, someone got mad. I just can't imagine someone intentionally hurting Noah. Noah's sister, Madison Rawlings, previously told Fox News. He wasn't into trouble like that, and he wasn't ever into drama like that. He was just like, whatever, you know. I mean, not into drama, yet still managed to get caught up in some kind of conflict with Jack Newton. But if Noah was the one to walk away from the argument conversation, then I guess it shows he's not all about drama. But even when you're not about drama and you don't start drama, you can still get dragged into drama and somehow caught up and attacked within it, directly, indirectly. It happens online, it can happen in real life too, right? Physical drama, verbal drama, etc., etc. But the bit about a fight club, I just don't understand this. Why is TMZ mention Fight Club? Did Madison Rawlings mention Fight Club? I mean, if you call slapping, a bit of slapping here and there, a fight club, I mean, it says a lot. I mean, you think of Fight Club, what, underground fighting, bare knuckle fighting, serious fighting, a bit of slapping, more like Slapbox, the Champion Thing series where they just stand there and get slapped. But an actual fight club is a lot more serious and a bit more rough and rugged, and we never saw any of that type of footage, as you would think, from the party stuff. So it's a bit weird, that, personally. And that's about it for that. So although this video may have been a bit short today, it's been very interesting and important. It'd be much appreciated if you can share and like, thumbs up on the video to spread more awareness, specifically to do with my interpretation of these calls, my notes that I noted down, and the unique perspective which I provided in terms of when the audio was playing and the labeling of it and the mapping. I put it all together because of the experience over time. I thought I'd just collect it in one go, you know, bunch it together so it's more relevant. Let me know what you found interesting. If you want to add on extra information, you can do so down below in the comment section. As I always said, when breaking news comes on out, that will always come first. And whilst I've still got a backlog of stuff to do, more new things keep piling on, but we've got to keep up to date, right? There's potential critical evidence. Are we saying that there's a connection, or is it just a coincidence with this dispatcher calls coming out now all of a sudden, and then previously hearing about that explosive new evidence popping up? Is there a direct link or correlation? I'm not too sure. unless that second caller who wasn't included in this footage today could be part of that explosive new evidence in the background, the details that they provided, which could incriminate someone and lead to a possible conviction. That's the only thing I can think of there. And if it wasn't anything to do with that, then it would possibly be that hidden recorded footage just after Caden Pressey was told to leave the scene much earlier on, before the truck drivers even passed on by. So that's at least my train of thoughts at this moment. You can leave your questions down below. You can check my previous videos out up top. We'll leave it there though for now. We'll see what's around the corner. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your patience. Goodbye. Good night for now.